It's called be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Yeah, man, I totally agree with you there. So what about, so we talked, the one word you use there, open source. I think that's so powerful, man. Like, I don't think people really fully grasp, not just even EOS, it's a lot of these projects that we see coming up now through the blockchain. Tell us about open source and how powerful this movement we're going through. It's almost like a new age, a new renaissance.
I like both those terms, and I think they're both accurate.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Like open source. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, so I've been, as are many of us in the space, we've been big fans of the open source movement, but open source had been kind of growing like this. It had been growing slowly. And the reason why is it's been voluntary, meaning if you worked on open source projects, you weren't compensated. Mm-hmm. So you either did it because you were you were a big fan of the idea, you wanted to be a contributor to making the world a better place in the way that, that resonated with you, or you wanted to do something cool for street cred. I did blankety blank, blank, blank. It goes on your resume, whatever. The problem was when any of those open source systems had a problem, who was there to fix it? Mm-hmm. If you weren't getting paid, people need, to eat. Right. So people working on open source projects, unless they were, had money for whatever reason, could only do it on nights and weekends. Yeah. And so the open source movement was moving slowly for a very long time. And what the blockchain did, what tokenization did, is it created the financial incentive to work on open source projects, kind of like owning shares in the internet or owning shares in underlying protocols. What the tokenization or blockchain did to open source is it provided the economic incentive to work on, call it open source projects. And today, as a result of what we're doing as an industry, people can make more money working on open source projects than you can working at Google or Facebook. Yep. And that's why we're seeing this incredible growth curve right now. It was taking the open source movement, taking, these, existing ideologies, but adding the economic incentive to, create the tsunami necessary to drive the innovation that we're seeing. The same way without Bitcoin's, mining incentive, we wouldn't be seeing these things. Economic incentives matter. And most people that come into this industry come in at first with greed, because they see the bright, shiny object and the opportunity, for, self-interest and to benefit themselves. But as you get deeper into the space, as you as you descend down the rabbit hole, or as you, become more enlightened with time, you eventually realize this is not about money. It's about changing the world for the better. And so people show up often for the wrong reasons, but they eventually leave with religion, without dogma.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because you were talking about open source and having people be, now we're being incentivized to work on these open source projects. It kind of started with not started, but, you can see the evidence of this open source culture with Uber and even like a lot of these social media networks, where they're not actually doing anything. They're just providing the platform, and people are coming in and making that service valuable. So I can see that being pervasive and moving into blockchain technology and that open source kind of movement. That's
the old world model was there's this concept of value creation and value capture. Take email, for example. Email created tremendous value for the world, but very few people profited directly from it. So that's a great example of incredible value being created with very little value capture. The opposite of that would be, call it, Kim Kardashian. Lots of value being captured, but very little value being created.
Right.
Meant to be funny. And so, that's what business is largely about. It's back to that scarcity mentality. It's about that proprietary sort of model of how do I create something that's going to create value, but how do I capture as much of that for myself or my organization as I possibly can? Mm-hmm. The open source mentality or the abundance mentality is, the opposite of that, which is how do I create something that is going to benefit everybody else and me in the process? How is it open to everyone? How is it inclusive to everyone? And this is the fundamental shift that we're seeing in the world. It's changing the game. It's moving away from the game of compounding interest and, moving into the game of compounding impact, which is the next step, and call it, our evolution.
Yeah. What about, so as far as with EOS, are you tell me why you're excited? I really want people to think of EOS as an operating system, where,
I mean, you could argue that the last two letters of EOS is operating system. I mean, a lot of people actually believe that's what the O and the S stands for. But I think everybody's right in the sense that we're all Satoshi. We are all the AVP. There is no right answer.
But what happened to the EOS being a Greek?
It's an open source community, which means your subjective view is your subjective view, and we're all right.
Yeah. But what about, speaking of this, we're on the topic of a FUD. Some are saying that EOS was named after this Greek god that, I don't know. Do you know anything about that whole story?
Yeah, no, I love that. I personally love that aspect of it, but no. I mean, I don't want to dispel anything that would take away from what anyone wants to believe. But in the earliest days of the development of this, I never once heard anyone mention that as the context at all. But I personally love it. I mean, Eos, the goddess of dawn, I think is what a wonderful idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in many ways, I think of you mentioned the term a new age. A new dawn is an awesome idea.
I mean, you have.
And by the way, all the FUD that I've seen about that is completely inaccurate.
Yes.
The goddess of dawn, which anyone can go look up, is a really cool Greek goddess that was responsible for bringing the sun up every day.
Yes, I know. I had to go. I had to go research it, and same thing. I'm like, wait a minute, this is not even what you're talking about. But
yeah, no, someone was trying to say that this was some horrific god that did bad things, which is not at all accurate. It's literally some people passing along FUD that haven't even taken the time to read a Wikipedia article. I mean, that lazy. I mean, they should be ashamed of themselves.
So what besides EOS, what other projects are you most excited about, or what projects are you a part of right now? I'm always interested to hear what people like yourself, you're always looking for something else to do and something else to push the envelope on. So what are you dealing with right now in the tech realm? What other projects? If you can disclose, I mean.
I'm an open book. I try to I disclose from a personal perspective. I'm a complete open book, and I'm always happy to disclose anything and everything. The only time I can't is when it involves other people. For example, if you provided me with some confidential information that is not yet ready for the public because you're working on a project that, it shouldn't be announced before it's ready to be announced.
Right.
I respect other people's privacy. Right. I respect other people's, information. But as far as my own information, I'm always an open book. I live my life transparently, like I live in a glass house. And so I'm working on a bunch of things, as always. I have always been that way. Puerto Rico is one of my major focuses. It's like, I live my life in service. I've committed my life to trying to make the world a better place. And that's my driving sort of motivation. That's always kind of what comes first. And so, in thinking about that, it's like, hey, where should I go? Where can I make the biggest impact in the world? And I'd started a bank in Puerto Rico in 2014. And so to help facilitate banking of crypto and the exchanges and things of that nature. And so when the hurricane hit, when Maria hit last year, I'm like, hey, well, let me go try and help them with, let's help them with their natural disaster, help them with their recovery, help them with their restart. And I've fallen in love with the place, and I'm doing all I can to support them. It's beyond just sort of crypto and blockchain. It's called, where can I go and have the biggest impact in the world? Mm-hmm. And so I think Puerto Rico is, kind of call it my main mission at the moment. But I'm involved in lots of projects. I'm involved in many ICOs, I'm involved in, more than a couple hundred projects in the space.
Wow. Okay.
And I think I've probably started more companies than anybody in the space. I think I've invested in more companies than anyone in the space. I've probably done more deals. I mean, I'm all over the place.
So which ones of that 100 are you, besides EOS, are you most excited about?
Well, Ethereum, obviously, Bitcoin, obviously. I mean, the underlying protocols and the main, cryptos are, very exciting. I'm also a fan of Tezos. I think what they're doing is, I think what they're doing is very interesting. I mean, they've had a very unfortunate misstep kind of out the gate, but I'm a fan of what they're doing. And, I'm a fan of anyone trying to do something with good intention.
Right.
If anyone's trying to make the world a better place, awesome. The only thing I have a problem with is people that have bad intentions. People that are doing things for the wrong reason. I may disagree with you.
Right.
I may not like what you're doing. I might not even think it's a good approach. But if you're doing things for the right reasons, if you've got good intentions, I'm here to support you. I'm here to help everybody I possibly can. And anybody in the industry that has known me for years knows that. I mean, that's my reputation through and through with anybody that actually does anything in this business. I don't mean, internet trolls.
Right. Yeah, we need more of that on the internet, man. I mean, it's okay to, I try to cultivate that on my channel. It's okay to have a debate. It's okay to disagree with one another, but we can disagree without calling each other be this, that, asshole, all of that. We can have a debate and maybe, grab something from that exchange. But from the
we're here to learn from each other.
Right.
We're here for it's knowledge transfer. And disagreements are often where some of the greatest knowledge transfer occurs. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing, but if we're here to make the world a better place, if we're here to change the world in some way, that's a huge responsibility. A huge responsibility. And as stewards of a movement that has that kind of potential, let's make sure that we're representing that movement right. And to do that means being mature. It means being respectful. It means being accurate. It means keeping an open mind. It means not yelling. It's all these things. If we are going to make this kind of impact on the world, let's do it the right way. Let's present it the right way. And the only way to do that is by, being mature.
Yeah, real talk. And I agree definitely with you on that. But back onto the philanthropic topic, you kind of touched on it, and that was what I was going to talk to you next about. You're doing a lot of stuff, not only in Puerto Rico, but even in Africa, countries in Africa. Man, I think that's wonderful. And really, I ask this question to many people who are very successful monetarily. Like, what is happiness? Because many people think that happiness is that Lambo, is the gold Rolex and the fancy cars and houses and all that stuff. But I see people who have a lot of money. Really, they'll either take those two paths. They'll either be miserable, and you'll be like, why the hell are you miserable? You got all the money. Or they'll be the type that really goes the way of helping others, right? And that seems like the path you're taking. Kind of tell us, what is happiness to you, and why do you want to help others at this point in your life?
Well, I'm trying to serve a higher purpose. I'm not here to serve myself. It's kind of like when you see that video on an airplane that's like, put the mask on yourself before, taking care of others. Eventually what happens is you've gotten good enough at taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
That you eventually say, I want to expand my sphere of what I'm responsible for.
Right.
What I choose to be responsible for. And then you'll go from yourself off into your family, to your friends. And eventually, you expand that as far as you can. And I'm going through that personal development of, how much can I do in service to others? I don't believe that life is about what you get. I believe it's about what you give.
So how do you get to that
place? Like, for example, I don't value things that I can buy. Almost everything that I wear, almost everything that I value is a gift. If I can buy it, I give it away. I don't value things that I can purchase because I don't value money. I think of money as an illusion. I don't think that dollars have value. I don't think that gold has value. I don't think Bitcoin
It's
has
all
value.
perceived value, right?
It's a shared belief system. It's because of consensus. We make things valuable. There isn't actual real value, to simply state it. And so,
can a normal person get to that point though? Especially like, in the United States, again, I can only
if your basic needs are not met, it's hard.
Yeah.
But once your basic needs are met, which is a pretty low bar, from there on out, it's up to you.
Right.
You are the director of your life. This is the biggest mistake people make is, where does happiness come from? Largely, it's about being in the present. It's about being in the now. It's kind of like the past is history. The future is a mystery, and the present is just that. It's a gift. And so a lot of people that are unhappy are living in the past because someone did something to them, or they made some sort of mistake, and they're blaming others or blaming themselves and living in regret. And as a result of that, they become very unhappy. Instead of taking the steering wheel and taking control of their own life and taking the responsibility for their own happiness, the only person that can make you happy in life is you. No one else is responsible for your happiness but you. And that is a decision, that we all work on and we, hopefully excel at over time. And that's the past. The future are people that are, overly concerned about events that haven't happened yet, that they
probably
don't have
won't even have
control over.
Yeah.
And so, the goal is be here now, be in the present. The only time there is now. And if you're in the now, it's kind of hard not to be happy. Because if you're not focused on the past, if you're not overly concerned about the future, the present's quite nice, unless you're in a hospital or, you're sick as a dog.
Right.
I mean, you should be happy 90+% of the time. And by the way, it's important that you're not happy 100% of the time, because the spectrum, is based upon, if you've been very sad before, that determines how happy you can be. I mean, that's kind of how life works. But you do have a lot more control over your happiness, and what you put out in the world is what comes back. If you put negativity out into the world, if you put hate out into the world, if you put FUD out into the world, that is going to be your life. That is the life that you've created for yourself. And that is the energy, that you've chosen to surround yourself with. Right. You are in charge of your life. You are responsible for your own happiness. Don't blame others. So take control of your life and make your life the best life that you can. Make it the life that you want. Dream and manifest the life for yourself that you want.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. And I don't mean to turn this into a Stefan Molyneux session here, but that's great, and that's really words of wisdom. Do you feel like what you just said, is that applicable to the kid in Africa? Is that applicable to a lot of these third world countries though? Like, they were dealt a hand that they can't do anything different. So is that where people like you come in to
it's applicable for everyone.
It's applicable to everyone.
But it's obviously a lot harder when you're in places and you don't have the benefits that like most Americans have. Americans generally have it a lot easier because they've got basic infrastructure, they've got basic needs generally met. Obviously, the greater struggle you have for survival, the harder it is to come to this realization and put it into practice. But it's available to anyone everywhere as long as they have liberty, right? But yeah, it's more difficult for some than it is for others. And that's a big part of what we're doing here. We are democratizing these systems to make it easier for everyone to do exactly that. And yeah, there clearly, if you don't have your basic needs met, if you live in a place where you don't have your, call it basic freedom, if you don't have, call it basic infrastructure, it's going to be much, much, much more difficult to take control of your life and make your life the way that you want it to be.
Awesome, man. That's words of wisdom, and I appreciate that. I'm sure my viewers will as well, man. So we're gonna wrap this up with the last part. I hate to end on this after just talking about that topic of philanthropic endeavors that you're going through and helping others, but the last point we're gonna talk about is the FUD and the stories that have been just spread all across the internet. Again, I told everyone at the beginning of the video, Brock kind of reached out. He saw I was talking about and trying to defend him. I didn't even know Brock. You know what I mean? Like, I'm defending a guy I don't even know. But I mean, just common sense will let you know, if you do your own research and you look into these things, a lot of this stuff is not true. So let's start off with, I think there was a case or something that you were involved with when you were 18 and there was a minor. Can you talk about that? What is that story all about when you were 18?
Yeah, no, my co-founder of my first company, got sued, and then eventually other lawsuits, copycat sort of lawsuits followed. That led to, all of this. And yeah, I started that company when I was 17, and, that was we call it my 17 and 18-year-old period of my life. And, it's been, it's most of it's largely inaccurate, but, I didn't understand, how to manage or interact with the media at the time. Certainly in a scenario like that, I was a kid.
Yeah.
And the problem with the media is once something is written on the internet, whether it be accurate or not, what happens is everybody else just keeps writing the same thing. And then, the inaccurate sort of information just becomes the story. And that story just becomes, call it the fact or the perception. And it becomes very difficult. You see this all the time. So, what happens is someone gets accused of something. The media has all the big stories and the headlines. And then eventually the truth comes out that maybe that wasn't accurate.
But that never gets the headline.
The media never covers it again. Yeah. They never correct the story.
Right.
And all that's left is the FUD. And so, this is not a problem that is, that exists just in my life. I mean, this is all over the place. Anybody, and, it happens to tons and tons and tons of people. I'm actually, quite grateful for all of it, in the sense that it's made my life really, really difficult. It made doing everything that I've done in my life 100 times harder than it would have been otherwise. And I like playing video games on, the hardest level possible. I like, give me impossible mode, always. I'm a Go player. I'm a chess player. I mean, I want it to be as difficult as it can possibly be. And, that's essentially what's happened for me as a result of that. And,
so the
thing that I would always encourage people to do is do your research, in life, and keep an open mind more than anything else. A lot of times what you'll see too is the media has a way of vilifying people that are actually doing big things. It's anytime someone is like breaking the mold,
right?
The system wants to break you down.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Bitcoin and its reputation.
Yeah,
let's just talk about Bitcoin. I mean, what did they say for the longest time? It was only used by drug dealers and, criminals.
Internet money.
By the way, they said the same thing about the internet too in '95. Newsweek did an article saying that the internet's a fad. It's going away. It's only used by criminals. I mean, this is the typical story that is, regurgitated and repeated over and over and over again.
So where can people find?
By the way, even in any of that stuff, just to give you a more specific thing, let's actually say that I had actually hooked up with some of these people.
Right.
I was 17 and 18. They were 17 and 18.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I didn't, but let's just say that I did,
right,
for the purposes of argument.
Yeah, no, I mean,
the problem is everybody looks at me today as a 37-year-old, and they don't actually look at dates.
Yeah, right. I was talking to my wife about that. I'm like, she's like, what? She's like, she was like, what she said? She said, I'm sure
many people don't know how to
people
read, and they also clearly don't know how to do math.
Yeah. She was like, I'm sure everyone was in high school and had a girlfriend or boyfriend that was, if they were 18, then their girlfriend or boyfriend could have been 17. Like there's a gray area there as you get older.
Well, you might have both been 17 and one of you had a birthday.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So that's what she said. I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't know, babe. I don't know what to say. So is that what?
On that note, just as a preview, I am going to be doing a very, very, very comprehensive sort of. I'm going to address this FUD in full, and I'm going to leave no stone unturned. And that's going to be, I've been working on that.
Okay.
A very large amount of my time right now has been spent dealing with that because I made the decision. I'm a person that doesn't live in the past. As I said, I live in the now.
Right.
I'm not trying to live in the past. I'm trying to focus on the now and trying to figure out what I can do in the world to make the world a better place. And I focus my time and energy there because there's only so much of it. Unfortunately, we're doing in this business has become so high profile.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I'm doing have become so high profile that I've been left with no choice but to address this. And I'm going to address it comprehensively and in full to, people will be able to, I'm going to answer every single question under the sun.
Okay, excellent. I'm glad, and hopefully that will help most. Though I talked to you before recording, it's not going to satisfy all. We just know that's just the nature of this world.
You can never make everyone happy.
You never could, man. You never can. So is that the reason why when you actually joined the Bitcoin Foundation, is that why a few of those individuals stepped down because of what the misinformation or that they had?
Yeah, so my understanding is that I think, most of the people that stepped down from the Bitcoin Foundation already didn't like the Bitcoin Foundation. They were already people in the forums. Go back and look, that were complaining every single day. We hate the foundation because you're always going to have haters. And then a few of them used that as an excuse. I think we lost a total of 10 members that paid $35. So I think the Bitcoin Foundation lost $350 in revenue. I think I brought more money into the Bitcoin Foundation than anyone. So I think that if you wanted to say that I was fully responsible for it, which I'm clearly not, and anyone can verify that, at most I lost the foundation $350.
Wow. And how many members are there, or were there? Because the foundation it was dissolved, right? Or is it still?
No. I'm still chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation.
Okay. I'm thinking of something else.
We're still one of the active organizations trying to serve the Bitcoin ecosystem, and there's some wonderful things that are going to be coming out on that front. But
so how many members at that time when you had the 10 leave? How many were there?
I don't remember, but it was a large number.
It was a large number, right? Yeah. So
it wasn't news. This was literally people creating news where there wasn't any. An organization that has millions and millions of dollars that was throwing the biggest events in the world lost $350. There's members that quit every day, and that got turned into a headline. It's because, again, I've been almost cursed with, again, that's not a story.
Yeah.
But Reuters wrote a story. How often does Reuters write a story about, an organization losing $350 worth of customers? It's probably one of the only examples of that ever happening.
The other point, Brock, that I wanted to bring up pertaining to this FUD, there were stories that you ran away with your other two friends to Spain. The authorities found child pornography on your computers, and two of you. And I don't know. Explain that whole thing, because that was the other thing that a lot of people were trying to explain. The reasons why they weren't investing in EOS.
Well, by the way, I'm also Ethereum. I'm also Bitcoin.
That's what I said. That's what I said.
I basically leave the industry if that's a problem.
Thank you. That's what I want. That's what I was saying. And so the rationale behind people.
Let's move beyond that. First of all, again, this is one of the most absurd things ever.
Right.
I don't know how someone can flee before there's anything that's even happened, right? Nothing had happened. And let's just say for the moment you did think you were on the lam. Let's say you were fleeing. You would go to a place that has no extradition treaty, for
there
one.
You go. Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't live somewhere with your name, opening your bank accounts, making phone calls, running a business, having friends visiting all the time. If you were actually fleeing, I would imagine you would be in hiding. I would imagine you probably wouldn't be using your name, running companies, traveling all the time, having phones in your name, bank accounts. It just...
Yeah, and so that's
one of the most absurd sort of assertions I can even think of. It's incomprehensibly stupid and inaccurate.
Yeah, it just didn't make any sense, man.
Just put yourself in a position for a second and think about that. If you thought that was what was going on, would you be running a business, as Brock Pierce? Would you have bank accounts as Brock Pierce? Would you have phones as Brock Pierce? Would you have flights as Brock Pierce? Would you be traveling? Would you have friends?
Be free today as Brock Pierce, part of the Bitcoin?
I've never been charged with a crime in my life.
See, this is what I'm saying. I couldn't find any paperwork. That's what I was telling people. Like, show me every time it came up.
I've never been charged with a crime in my life. So I mean, again, that's the facts.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely be looking forward to the piece that you put together that kind of tells the whole story in detail.
Yeah, I mean no stone unturned, addressing every nuance, everything. Imagine if you were going to let every person in the world. It's an Ask Me Anything that is so comprehensive that it would give people a year to do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great, man. I'm glad, and hopefully you can put this behind you. I mean, you're doing great things, man. I guess life can't be perfect. You're doing such a great thing in this world with the philanthropy and everything else, man. So I guess you got to have something coming after you, some demons that want to.
As I said, it's made everything I've had to do in my life so much harder that it's made me that much better. So I'm there's always a silver lining. Always look for the light in things, and it's ultimately made me better, and it's held me to it's forced me in its own way to hold myself to the highest ethical bar. Mm-hmm. It's forced me to operate with integrity in a way that I probably wouldn't have,
right?
Because I've been often prejudged by people.
Yeah.
I have to hold myself to the highest possible bar of integrity and ethics.
Right.
Because I'm no one, I have no forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm held to, I have once, to hold man, it's just going to be they're
going to just stone you to death, man. Yep, you're right.
And so by the way, that's also a good thing. If I had just been if I had just, everything had gone well there, my first company, I was 18, was $1 billion business. I did a unicorn in my teenage years. And so, which by the way, some awesome stuff there. We were building YouTube and Hulu. We pioneered, and by anyone in the media business, we're still considered to be the creators of that. Words like Wepisode. Had a record label when I was 18, one of the first digital record labels. The bands then were Beck, Beastie Boys, and Foo Fighters. I mean, I wouldn't change any of it. It was one of the greatest life experiences possible. I mean,
legendary.
There's some, but again, we'll get into all of that period of my life. I'm going to go through that, 8 years, everything possible.
That's cool, man. I'm looking forward to it, and thank you again, man, for taking this time out. And I know, the more important you get, the more precious time is. So I really, really deeply appreciate you coming on my little ass show to explain. But no,
I have to do that. It's called as a civil servant, as someone living their life in service, as someone that does that. This is in part my job. It's being accessible. It's being available. I'm one of the only people I've ever met that when I give talks at conferences, I hang out until I've talked to every single person that wants to. Most people show up, give their talk, exit stage left. I mean, I mean, anyone that's ever been to a crypto conference knows that if you've been to one that I've attended. I'm there and I answer every question, and I'm there to help everyone.
This is crazy how this world works. Are you still going to be at the World CryptoCon in Vegas? Are you going to be there?
Which date?
Halloween.
Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure that's on my calendar. I know that there's.
I'll be there. I've been in October. Yeah, I've been invited to
I
come to that one.
Multiple talks a week. So trying to remember all the events. I live on a plane. I'm in Hong Kong right now. I'll be all over Asia the next week or so.
Well, hey, man, keep doing your thing. I'll see you in Vegas at the World CryptoCon. I'll be on the panel there. I don't know what I'm talking about. They have me talking about something, man. But look forward to meeting you in person then, and look forward to the tell-all. I don't know, is it going to be like what is it, a video, a book, or what is it?
It'll be multimedia. Okay. For most people, it'll be a 3 to 5 minute video that just most people don't want to waste hours of their life. But, for those that do, you'll be able to spend as much time on it as you want.
All right, man. We've got Brock Pierce on. Man, I had a great time. I hope to have you on again. We're going to talk crypto stuff, but even other stuff, man. I love just engaging with individuals who are smart and think outside the box. My man, Brock Pierce, thank you again for joining me. Crypto Blood, I'm out. Holla.